Hi, and welcome to a FaciliTopics presentation. My name is LGilmer, and over the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you some ideas about the topic, speaking their language in the field of facility management. But before I begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me and my path in facility management. I started my career as a design engineer, and I loved it. But what I found out I came to love more was interacting with people and facilities to solve problems. A good friend of mine who was a facility manager, he pointed me toward facility management and I was hooked. That path has led me to solving problems in facilities, as well as teaching, serving on industry boards, authoring publications, public speaking of all things. And I've loved the opportunities and the variety of things that I've been able to see. And most of all, the people that I've had the honor to work with in the facility management field. So today we're going to talk a bit about speaking their language. We'll look at understanding what is important to an organization and how that really plays a central role in facility management. We'll look at understanding and relating to others, and then we'll look at shaping and focusing your message and keeping that end in mind. So moving on to what is important to the organization and looking at that idea of the organization and the FM. Sometimes what we say in facility management is what is important to your organization, so must it be important to you as the facility manager. Why would we even say something like that? And part of that is an understanding of what the facility manager has under their care. The facility manager is a critical resource who is responsible for keeping the facilities up and running, for helping to keep people productive, for keeping them safe, for contributing to that bottom line for the overall organization. But you really have to understand what is the organization about? What is its chief end, its reason for being? So I'll give you an example. Think about SpaceX and what SpaceX is really about. If you've watched any of the launches or some of their videos that are out there, you might pick up that they're about going to space and really interplanetary travel. I have a friend who works for SpaceX, and he actually has a doormat that says "Occupy Mars." That is their mission. And so as they think about what their job is, they're getting people to Mars. They're already sending some things over there. So for them, if you've thought about, all right, the organization, then they're really galvanized around getting to Mars. What would that mean to a facility manager? The facility manager certainly isn't working on getting to Mars. Well, in a sense, they really are. The facility manager is focused on making sure that everything works so well in that facility that the people who are in there, the scientists and the various people that it takes to pull this all together, that they can do their job, that they have everything that they need and they can focus on their essential functions. So the facility manager is working to make sure that things like the HVAC systems work, that people aren't too hot or too cold and distracted by complaints, that the alarm systems are working, that security is appropriately in place, that everything is working as it should. So those preventative maintenance tasks that they take on are critical in ensuring that that facility operates the way that it's intended, and so that people can do their job and not worry about the facility. That really is a backdrop for the success of their work. So then moving on to the people. Just as important as understanding who you work for, it's also really important to understand who you work with. One of the early lessons that I learned in my career was the importance of listening. This is a critical skill to facility managers. And we talk about seeking first to understand where people are coming from and going to. Facility managers interact with a tremendous variety of people. Their touch range goes from the C-suite all the way to the person who's controlling the locks and the keys. So for the C-suite, we think about the CFO, the CEO, et cetera, and what they really care about. And typically they have kind of a big picture. They've got large concerns like the strategy of the organization. Where are we going? How many people do we have? What do they need? What is our budget? Are we meeting it? How are our revenue polls? That sort of thing. And then we have individual cares occurring as well. Things like we might have the locksmith or the person who's changing the filter. We might have a person in an office who's running calculations, or a person who's taking care of human resource related concerns. So we have this variety of people that the facility manager is interacting with, all of them. They're people oriented issues. And so what the FM really needs to then understand in this vast array of opportunity of responsibilities and people is how to keep everything kind of in line and moving forward, keeping that organizational focus, but also understanding the very people that they're working with. And that helps the facility manager with their overall message. So the FM is working to align with organizational drivers to understand what the needs are. And then they need to also speak the language of FM to everybody else around them. Um, there's a number of ways that the facility manager does that. It's really interesting. I'll give you an example of an art museum. A friend of mine is a facility manager in an art museum, and one of the challenges that he had was aging piping. Sounds really basic and boring, but the piping was incredibly important. Think about water piping in a building. And it lasts for decades, yes, but if it starts to fail, it can be really catastrophic. So at the museum, they have beautiful works of art, some very, very old pieces, extraordinarily expensive pieces, some of them priceless. So as he thought about the facilities and the aging infrastructure, it was very hard for him to get anyone to pay attention to the need to replace piping. That just wasn't where people in leadership were thinking about their dollars needing to go. They thought of that as being something that they could just keep going and someone else has that under control. But for him, it was becoming more and more critical, and he could see what would happen if they didn't fix the piping, if they didn't get those replacements made. But he had to figure out how to help them connect with that message. So knowing what the museum was about, and then thinking through how people in the C-suite were thinking, what he did was took pictures. He took pictures of the hallway when a pipe had leaked and the problem that it caused in the hallway. And really what you saw was a puddle. It looked inconvenient, but not disastrous. He also took pictures when they had dug up the piping, some of the piping. He took pictures of how bad it looked and how it was so obviously falling apart. And he took those pictures, and then he also took pictures of the art in the museum and what could happen. And he painted this picture of the piping, its potential failure, and what that could do to the artwork that was under their care. That story, that ability to frame his message appropriately, and understanding again what is really important to the organization, and what is important to those people who are making decisions, and how are they relating to the information that they're getting. Thinking through all of that, he was able to craft and connect a message that they could understand, and that helped him then get a piping project put in place, because he understood, again, that organizational mission, and he helped everybody else understand the critical nature of facilities and its connection to that inline mission. So facility managers play an absolutely essential role, again, in keeping that facility going. So as we think about speaking their language, remember that it takes understanding who the organization is and what it cares about. It takes empathy and relationship with people, and understanding how to talk with them, and understanding their cares and their concerns and drivers. It also takes focus. You have a job to do, a place to get to, and the facility manager is charged with that safety, that care of the physical facilities, and helping the organization overall to succeed. So thank you so much for listening to this FaciliTopic on speaking their language. FaciliTopics are short lessons on facility management in the industry. They're intended to give you an overview of one topic. For more FaciliTopics, or to learn more about Facilithon, please visit www.fmpipeline.org. This is Lori Gilmer. Thank you so much for joining me.